Welcome to China EVs and More, where my co-host Lei Xing, a repatriated Lei Xing, and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the China EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What I thought was a slow week has really rallied into a lot of news to cover this week. What Lei and I discussed today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to those loyal listeners, welcome back. We ask that you please help us get the word out about this podcast to other enthusiasts. And of course, tune in again next week. My name is Tu Li. I'm the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. A tremendously long layovered Lei in France. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning from the countryside.
Both of us have the mornings now.
Good morning from the countryside. This is your co-host, a jet-lagged, technical difficulty challenged Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. And this is episode number 130. 130.
That trip you took was basically like 3 trips back and forth and back to China with that 50-hour total trip. So crazy.
Yeah, I booked my ticket back in March, and the return trip required kind of an overnight stay. So we stayed at the transit hotel in the Z terminal inside the Frankfurt airport. So that's the thing, because you arrive in the afternoon, but the flight to JFK leaves in the morning.
Right.
So yeah, but anyways, so where do we begin? I mean, it's weird coming back because everything feels, like I tweeted, right? Everything feels outdated.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Tesla I rented again on Hertz, or coming into the terminal and then picking up your luggage, you have to pay either cash or credit card for the cart. $6 for the cart, and I'm like, oh god. And JFK, a lot of renovation going on, and coming back to like a third world country after what I've experienced the last 2 months, right?
Yeah, dude. So yeah, it is. When I moved back, it was a different experience. Just getting in the car all the time now, but it is what it is. I think that well, especially now because that's a good segue. Maybe we begin with talking about the Chengdu Motor Show.
Yeah.
So
I completely missed it because I was on the road driving when this was all happening last night, right? Which was morning time, Chengdu local time. And I did a quick research this morning, like at 5, 6 a.m. with the jet lag. I don't know what you found, but I see this huge trend toward 2 things: plug-in hybrids and plug-in hybrid MPVs and SUVs. And we can talk about a little bit later on the ROX motor, the Ji, right? That's what I found to be interesting at the Chengdu Motor Show.
I think it's a good appetizer for IAA and Detroit. I think it's on par with those two. I still think that Beijing and Shanghai are the world's best auto shows. And it's probably, and if we count Beijing and Shanghai as one auto show, then I think that's really the only one that matters. I think IAA is going to do its best to make some news, but NIO is not going to have a booth at IAA. They're having separate events outside. And Detroit, I looked at the kind of participants, and there doesn't seem to be that much going on. Although, because you and I are just nerds, we're going to be attending both. And then we'll probably end the year with the LA Auto Show. So, and for us, it's almost as much about seeing the people that we DM all the time and know, who inquire, who ask questions, send emails to see them in person and kind of trade rumors. I think that's the fun part for me, and I think for you as well. So yeah, Chengdu, I kind of looked at everything, and I mean there are some announcements. So Li Auto announced that their
Mega.
BEV Mega is going to be starting delivery early next year, like January, February. So that means that they're running pilots right now. We've seen pictures of some of the mules that were already manufactured, the prototypes. So it's going to be a huge departure for Li Auto because their marketing has been pretty consistent because the L7, L8, and L9 are basically identical triplets. And so let's see how the Mega is received by the Chinese community. And then the other thing, I don't know, were there any significant announcements that stuck out to you at Chengdu?
Yeah, so to add on the Mega, they're trying to position it as the best-selling vehicle of any kind, ICE or BEV or EREV, SUV, car, MPV, any kind, priced above 500,000 RMB. So that's a big, bold statement that they're putting out.
Let me stop you right there, Lei.
Yeah,
500,000 RMB is about $80,000.
$80,000. Yeah, yeah. $80,000.
So it's not a cheap MPV.
No. So pretty lofty target on that. And then in parallel, they're rolling out this city level. What's the English term? It's kind of like to and from work, NOA.
Yeah.
I don't know the correct English name for it. There must be one, but they're rolling this out, not depending on high def maps, like in several cities.
So no, I think everyone's moving away, and we kind of alluded to this in last.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting away from high def maps because that's a huge constraint for getting into L3, L4 level capabilities. So,
and then the other model I thought was interesting was just tweeted just now, the Kia EV5, which is kind of a dedicated, I wouldn't say China only model, but it had its global debut in China, and it looks like this is going to be one of those models that will be made in China for the world and launching in China first. The pricing, I feel like it's pretty competitive, starting at 160,000, so roughly $30,000. ID4,
and this points to, because I think 2 weeks ago was the 1-year anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act. So this points to a decision that Kia had made prior to the IRA becoming law. And they probably would take it back maybe because at $30,000, adding 27.5% tariff to it, in addition to the logistics costs that they would have had to pay anyways, that might make it uncompetitive unless they eat a lot of that tariff. And so that's one of the things that we'll see that the IRA has affected negatively, because this follows in the footsteps of the Polestar 2, which is built in Wuhan and shipped to the world. And GM, or not GM, but Volkswagen has talked about building ID series vehicles in China by 2024, shipping them to Europe. And then finally, Ford has also talked about, and this is an ICE, shipping Lincoln Nautiluses starting in 2024 from China to the US.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing is this retrenching a little bit of the OEMs saying that, yes, manufacturing in China is cheaper, and scale, quality, reliability, all of those different factors that intersect make sense for more than one OEM. And many of them are not Chinese. So I think that has to play into local governments, US government, European Union, and individual country level governments like a Germany, like a France, like a Spain, because it's going to be these cheaper models that enter those markets from China. So
the Kia EV6, which is the World Car of the Year, I think this is an imported version, also launched with the GT version in the 300,000 to high 400,000 range. I don't know how this car will do in China. There's been a lot of marketing on this car recently, test drives. So that'll be an interesting move. And then let me run off a few models that are all PHEVs and look at the JAC Refine RF8 PHEV MPV, the GAC Trumpchi ES9 PHEV MPV, the Maxus 7 PHEV MPV. And then there's a few sedans, Geely Galaxy L6 PHEV. That's hitting on the Qin Plus, the BYD Seal DMI, and then there's some others, right? These are all PHEVs. Even the Mengshi, did you see the Mengshi 917?
Yeah, I saw that.
Comes out with the EREV priced at 637,000 RMB. So that's upwards of close to what, 90,000, $100,000. And then the Yangwang U8 luxury edition is hitting the market in the September. And the BYD Song L, the production version, finally debuted. And the Bao 5 is accepting this, what is it called? The blind orders, 300,000 to 400,000 RMB.
So I want to unpack this a little bit. Like, first of all, Toyota got hammered for leaning into PHEVs, and now they seem to be validated a little bit. And some of this, and I'd love your thoughts on my quick analysis. Some of this has to do with the price war because these companies are broadening their product line in order to try to create more sales opportunities. Because on the BEV side, they're seeing a small competitive set of brands in China, and they're getting boxed out of it. And so I think they're going into PHEVs to broaden their product line, but also to mitigate some of the volatility in the battery pricing so that I think there's more predictability in margins and revenues. So this is likely going to become a global trend where instead of going from ICE straight to BEV, there could be this smaller transition. And we had talked about this last year, that was likely going to be the case, but I didn't realize there was going to be a dozen, 24 brands that were also going to start launching PHEVs. So
yeah, and then the other one that was making big bold statements was the IMLS6. I think they put up a slide on comparing with the ES6, the Avatar 11, and saying that they've got the best features even on their top trim, under 300,000 RMB, where the other ones are priced much higher than 300,000 RMB. You see these, and quite a few of these models are launched, like we said before, price cut on launch. So these newer, refreshed versions are cheaper than the previous older versions, or you launch the PHEV versions at a relatively lower price. I think that's a play that we're seeing.
So I think another way to say that what Lei is saying is that they sharpen their pencil. They might have initially had a price point before the price war that they were going to launch at, but then they reassessed the current conditions in the market and cut pricing before even launching the vehicle in order to try to make it competitive at launch. So
yeah, and the other talk of the town or model that we should mention is the Polestar 4 accepting a starting pre-sale and offering this. First of all, the Mobileye supervision-based ADAS from the start, and then the fine print says the Mobileye chauffeur with eyes-off point-to-point autonomous driving on highways. So I tweeted that this looks to me to be L3 capable. And so far we know that only BMW and Mercedes are localizing this, trying to localize this feature in China. And it's already available in Germany and California and Nevada, I believe.
And Honda has L3 capable available in Japan.
Yeah, so that's an interesting route that Polestar 4 is taking, while the Polestar 3 is going with a completely different setup, right? The Luminar LiDAR, and this is purely vision-based, building off of Mobileye. So that's interesting.
Let me ask you, Lei, when they originally launched the Polestar 4, or unveiled the, I should say more appropriately, unveiled the Polestar 4, they said that they would have standard ADAS features, but there would be a premium feature called Pilot Assist. Are they changing the name now and featuring Mobileye as their partner brand, or was pilot assist always this Mobileye? That's what's confusing to me a little bit. So I'll need to find out, or we'll need to find out more about how that's going to work, or if they change directions a little bit. So
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it looks like this time it's a mutual effort to market this ADAS technology.
So there's a lot of anticipation because the Polestar 2 has been a decent seller in Europe, not very good in the United States or China. They feel that the Polestar 4 could be one of the high runners to kind of not replace, because the Polestar 2 will still be for sale, but I think they see an opportunity with the 4 starting at 60,000 US dollars, Chabuduo, and it's going to be manufactured in Hangzhou. So the current product that Polestar is going to be shipping from the United States and from China is the Polestar 3, which is the premium SUV.
Yeah, and Polestar 4 will be also kind of like the Kia EV5. This is a very China specific, model.
With the potentially controversial no rear window, but a rear camera. I like it.
And it's utilizing eCarX to integrate this system, which is kind of interesting for this model. So you're seeing this entire Geely ecosystem at play here, and we can also talk about Jidu, which is now
Jiyue. But it's not Moon. It's not Yue, Moon Yue. It's
surpass.
Surpass, yeah, okay.
Yeah. 超越, which
like,
means
surpass. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
For those that are wondering, eCarX is Geely's Cariat, effectively. I think that's the best way to kind of
sort of.
Yeah, it's a bit more advanced than Cariat, and they have Mercedes as a customer as well.
And it's also more hardware than Cariat, which is purely software, I believe. Yeah.
Right. So eCarX is a publicly traded company, and they boast hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, all with either Geely partnered companies or Geely affiliated companies. Mercedes is 9% owned by Geely, so Mercedes is using some of eCarX's stack, and so and Polestar is obviously a Volvo company, which is controlled by Geely as well. So
yeah, and then the Jiyue, I think you have mentioned this on a few episodes ago, that they had faced this issue of getting the manufacturing permit. And so this time, in order to get it, I guess there was kind of Jidu was a 55-45 Baidu Geely joint venture. But now Jiyue is a joint venture between a company under Geely that has 65% stake, and now Baidu owning 35% stake in order to get the production license. So it's complicated, but looks like they get the green light.
Speaking of manufacturing license, Lei Jun
Xiaomi
has been active on Twitter.
Yes, I knew exactly where you were going.
Yeah, so he has been on local Chinese social, implying that their vehicle is being tested in the desert. It's being tested in all these different places. And I've written in this week's newsletter that Jiyue, I have to get used to saying that, Lei. Jiyue, is that Sisheng? Is that fourth tone?
Jiyue, yeah.
Yue, okay, Jiyue. Yeah. So I have to get used to Jiyue or Jiyue and Xiaomi are going to be two of the first tech companies that are launching products. There are a couple of technology experienced founders like a Neutron, but they're struggling to get their manufacturing license as well. So it looks like Xiaomi, which is actually going to be launching a sedan for less than 300,000, or is it 300,000 RMB, so about $45,000. And the Jiyue Robo One is more like a Model Y. So looks like they could be launching it around the same time, Lei. Which would be very interesting.
A bit later. So and for Xiaomi, what they got is there's two doors kind of they have to go through. So they get the clearing on the first door, which is NDRC, and NDRC has this thing called Administrative Regulations on Newly Established Battery Electric Passenger Vehicle Manufacturers. They got this. So this is sort of like a kind of like your birth certificate. And then they have to get their identity card from the MIT, which is based on this thing called Entry Regulation on NEVs. And I suppose it's only a matter of time that they get it, because the identity card, once you get the birth certificate, is relatively easier.
太复杂 man.
Yeah, it's complicated, but the NDRC and MIT are basically the two organs that you have to get approval. So it looks like Xiaomi will, at least they can, unlike Neutron, which is kind of a premature death, right?
Yeah. I think there's still a heartbeat, but it's faint. It's faint.
Which, since we're talking about approval, we can talk about ROX Motors or Jishi, which they're, if you saw the CNEV Post article mentioning that their English website is poststones.com. so Polestar is Jixing, and now we have a Poststone. It just cracks you up, right?
Well,
and I mean, with this thing, right? When I looked at this announcement, this SUV that was released or revealed, I was like, this is like a Li Auto wannabe. This is a Rivian wannabe. I mean, it just...
And it'll likely never see the light of day in the United States or Europe.
And it's got the Yangwang or the Fangchengbao exterior and the Li Auto interior.
Yeah, so there are about 10 versions of Chinese versions of the G500 Mercedes SUV and the Land Rover Defender.
This is a segment that has recently been getting a lot of traction with multiple brands and models launching this.
And it's weird, Lei, because from a Chinese domestic standpoint, Great Wall is the one that led that originally 2 years ago.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
It was like Tank was like the only model that was kind of this off-road, outdoor lifestyle type of. Now there's just a bunch more.
What's going on with Great Wall? Have you heard anything? They've just been so quiet.
Well, I mean, I think they have some problems with these different brands and models trying to, figure out the positionings. I think that they're going through some restructuring.
Okay, right. Yeah, I'd heard about that too. For the folks that are wondering, Great Wall Motors is one of the 3 independently owned motor companies in China. The other 2 being Geely and BYD.
So I'd say that ROX Motors or Jishi Poststone. See, all these different names. You don't like which is which. Maybe there's a company name, there's a brand name, there's a model name. It's called the Jishi 01.
We should just start an advisory firm, Lei, about brand names. And it doesn't have to be about cars. It can be about anything.
And the guy behind it, this is similar to, what's his name? Li Yifan of NIU, Niu, not Neo, but NIU, founding the same 2 different companies, but completely separate, right? So this founder, Changjing, is the founder of the Roborock vacuum robot company. And then he later founded this ROX Motors.
Yes.
And one of the founders is the former CTO of WM Motor.
Not named Freeman Shen.
No, it's Yanlan. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
And speaking of the getting approval, they're using BAW, which is Beijing Automotive Works, as a kind of a contract manufacturer akin to JAC Neo. And one of the other highlights for this car is the world's first vehicle using Hesai's F120 solid-state LiDAR. So even Hesai is taking a bet, is taking a risk, giving this company, this customer, the spotlight for using their, first time that their solid-state LiDARs are being used.
Speaking of companies that are broadening their horizons, you tweeted about WeRide.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a matter of time, right?
No, but so I was reading that it wasn't approval from the regulation. It was acknowledgement that they received the paperwork, right?
Paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's an important distinction because WeRide is what was it called before? Shoot, I forget what it was called before.
Yeah, it was a different name
Yeah.
before.
Anyways, WeRide is one of the largest autonomous vehicle companies or startups in China, along with Pony, Momenta, and a few others, QCraft, and then Baidu's kind of the 800-pound gorilla. WeRide has applied to IPO in the US, I think on the NASDAQ. So they're one of the more promising companies. I think they're launched in 25 cities in 5 countries, they said. They're in 5 countries. So big moves, broad footprint, and will. So when I think of this, I'm looking at the challenges between the U.S. and China relationship, and I'm like, what challenges? So
Yeah, so I looked at the screenshot I had. It is a notice on receiving the paperwork
yeah,
and
so
basically pointing to that you can be listed either NYSE or NASDAQ.
and I'm a little bit thrown off because our timing. Normally, I'm like looking at the clock to make sure it's like 9:45 or something, but
Yeah, we started at 9:20.
okay, so we've been talking for about 30 minutes.
And you mentioned BYD Korea. I saw the headlines, but I didn't read into the details. Maybe you can.
So there is a local Chinese company or a local South Korean OEM called Sangyong or Sangyong.
Which SAIC owned.
Yes,
Are you talking
exactly.
about Sanyong Motors?
Yes, Sangyong Motors. Yep. They are looking to partner with BYD to build cells in South Korea. These to me, so South Korea is a pretty decent sized market, first and foremost. And so there's strategic value in building locally for South Korea. But South Korea also is a friendly country to the United States. And my thought is that they're definitely trying to do an end around on the IRA to get their cells into vehicles in the US because you and I know this. As of earlier this year, late last year, middle of last year, we knew that BYD was aggressively going to move in the United States. And late last year, their philosophy changed on that. But we all know that Wang Chuanfu's and Stella Li's ambitions are still very global. And that includes being a big part of the US market in the next 3, 5, 7 years. Now, I still believe long term, they're going to build a factory as close as they can to Mexico City Giga to take advantage of the supply base because there's already a number of Chinese suppliers that have said they're going to be entering Mexico to support Tesla. So makes a ton of sense. And with BYD, they can build cells for their own vehicles in Mexico and they can build cells for other companies, including Tesla, who they also supply to. And if we think about BYD from a product standpoint, it makes total sense because they live and breathe in the sub 250,000 RMB, 300,000 RMB price point. That would be, from a mass market and volume standpoint, would be the only breathing room, or that would be the huge opportunity for them in Mexico and Latin America, because those countries, the per capita incomes are much lower than a US or a Germany. So there's a lot of strategic value in being in Mexico, but this could be their way of entering the United States to supply companies. And we know that South Korea has really pushed back on the inflation, the South Korean government has pushed back on the Inflation Reduction Act. And so these are the types of loopholes that you can expect to see or try to get exploited from companies. And so I don't know yet. I speak to people quite often about the Inflation Reduction Act, and I don't know how aggressively the U.S. government is going to be at trying to close these loopholes. But yeah, that's an interesting take. Well, do you think that they're also looking at potentially trying to go around the IRA by building cells in South Korea, Lei?
Anything's possible, and anytime you can find a way. I mean, the CATL 4 is a way, right? Although it's facing pushback. But
It's far from approval. Let me say that.
yeah,
It's far from being
yeah,
approved. I still think eventually it's going to get approved, but right now there's a couple things going on, Lay. The Detroit Auto Show and the UAW negotiations.
yeah, that's right.
And so Sean Fain, who is the UAW president, the new UAW president, who effectively the UAW members didn't really want him because he only won by like 1%. And so he's trying to establish himself with Mary, with Jim Farley, with Tavares. And he famously is negotiating through social media, a first time for a UAW president. And he so Stellantis had sent over basically a proposal, and on social media he threw it in the trash, and he's like, "This proposal is trash." So, and he said that
He did a Speaker Pelosi moment. Right?
yeah, he's just bad mouthing the OEMs, and John McElroy, friend of the show, friend of ours, good friend of ours, very knowledgeable, very objective. I have a ton of respect for him. He did a 8-minute video talking about how dangerous that is to be bad mouthing who you're going to be working with.
Yeah.
And so it creates animosity, it creates ill will. And so I unfortunately, so contracts are negotiated every 4 years. September 15th, I think, is when the current 4-year contract ends. So you're going to be in or around Detroit at around that time. So
Are we looking at a potential strike or something?
with the Detroit Auto Show in the backdrop, potentially.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So there's a study, I think I mentioned this last week. There's a study done by a consulting company that 10 days of strike would cost $5 billion of damage. So,
yeah. Anyway, speaking of Stellantis and speaking of partnering together, we add Leap Motor into that equation because there's been some chatter about Stellantis trying to work with Leap Motor. And Leap Motor is already rumored of working with Jetta, right? So again, these things are popping up, and Leap Motor is announcing something in Munich.
yeah. And it's important to note that these companies sometimes, I'm not saying Leap is doing it, but I'm kind of saying that they're doing it, that they're kind of negotiating through the public, maybe to push negotiations a bit further. So kudos to the Bloomberg team. You know, we're friends with Danny, we're friends with Linda, and on this side of the world, Gabby Coppola. She does good stuff. She did that A123 article a couple of months back. So kudos to them to kind of digging that out. I didn't see that coming, but if you take a step back, it makes a ton of sense. But you know, their most recognizable brand is Jeep. Peugeot is struggling, Citroen is struggling. So if they're using a Leap Motor platform, which brand would it be for? Because Leap Motor, their platform is for small mass market vehicles. So
yeah, I figure it would be a French brand,
which is weird because they're not doing well, right? So
no.
So you would think that they would want to partner with somebody with a platform that would match one of their more favorable brands. So it kind of doesn't make sense. But again, maybe Leap Motor is trying to negotiate and saying, "Hey, Jetta, if you don't join with us, we got other customers." Right.
Again, these companies, we're talking about NIO, we're talking about Leap Motor, we're talking about Expo. These companies are trying to branch out from purely a smart EV startup into, let's say, a smart platform supplier, smart technology supplier. And, that's what's potentially are happening.
I'll add to that, Lay. They're trying to get when the getting's good, because the foreign OEMs, they know they're in a pickle because they don't have the capabilities yet to create these platforms themselves, but they know that eventually they will. And so they're trying to create these opportunities for themselves when they know there's a need for them. Okay.
Yeah. It goes back to your build or buy decision, right? Is that your?
Yes. Make or buy. Yeah.
Make or buy. Yeah. Make or buy.
And yeah, yes. Yes. It's very, 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 very interesting. And then I think one of the things that I wanted to bring up because I follow the Indian market pretty closely. And so there was a great article from CNN that highlighted the Indian EV market. And it's forecasted to become by 2030 like $100 billion market. The eye opener is that, and I've always known this, that a lot of that is going to be driven by 2 and 3 wheeled EVs. And we've said this before. I've said this before in past episodes, but China was able to get rid, generally speaking, right? Because the 2 months you were in Beijing, Lei, the pollution wasn't really that big of an issue, right?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. So, but in 2012, 2013, 2014, it was pretty bad, right? So,
yeah, we all lived through it. So.
Yes, Beijing was able to clean up the air in a short period of time, in 4 or 5 years. So that was just amazing to me. Okay. And India is in a similar situation currently.
Yeah.
And so because remember that India is a democratic country. So if Modi wants to stay in power, the first thing, so the citizens of a country sometimes don't touch, feel, see, experience some of the changes in laws that are being implemented by their governments. But you can see, you can touch, you can feel, you can taste the pollution, right? When it's really bad. And so if he wants to stay in power, he's going to have to make really, really broad changes. And so
no, I'm wondering because she's in South Africa for the BRICS meeting, and supposedly he's met Modi, right?
Yep.
And the two countries are not on good terms recently. So don't know what will come out of that meeting, but China is going to play a role, perhaps.
China's going to play a role. The United States is going to play a role, and
in India.
To more detail about your point about the challenging relationship. So most of the social media apps from China, TikTok, things like that, are banned in India. And so I think 6 or 8 months ago, maybe a year ago, the Indian government also implemented or passed a law that said neighboring countries or bordering countries, if their companies wanted to do business in India, they would need to find a JV partner. And
yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
There's basically only one bordering country. So, and a few weeks ago, BYD was rebuffed on their $1 billion investment proposal into India. So
yeah,
India is going to be a player. And I'm not saying that they're going to be a hugely significant player in the EV space, like at least in 4 wheels in the next 3, 4, 5 years, but they will influence a lot of what's going on over the next several years.
Yeah, I mean, the priority is probably, getting these India EV Inc., if you will, get them up and running. I mean, these could be the traditional, the Tatas, the Marutis, and even some of the two-wheeler
Mahindra
players. Yeah, before, I mean, the Chinese makes a presence, right? So I think that's,
There's so we might think of India as a smaller country with regards to passenger vehicles, but they're the 3rd largest market. We always think of the EU as one entity, but if we break it down into the 27, 29 countries, there's a bunch of smaller markets. Whereas India, so it goes China, United States, India, with India at around 4.3 million units last year. Small percentage of those are EVs. India sold more than 5 million two-wheeled vehicles. So with a growing portion of those being electric. And so we'll see the same types of challenges, a bit more extreme in India than we will in China, Europe, and the United States, because the grid is not great and the infrastructure, the roads just aren't there yet in a lot of places.
That's what I said at the beginning. Even the U.S., the first impression once you land, right, and then going through the airport and all the construction going on, it's like infrastructure is really behind.
Yeah, all you need to do is visit one time, and you just know simply that there's a lot of improvement that needs to happen in order.
And I'm also talking about payment infrastructure, which X is trying to they're trying to do something on that front. But
And I'll say this. There is an article in The Atlantic written by Ronan Farrow about Elon Musk that was, if true, was very, very, very eye-opening. And it's worth a read to our listeners if you get a chance. Whether you're a fan or not of Elon and Twitter and Tesla, it's just pretty eye-opening.
perhaps we can look ahead to Munich.
Let's do it.
So you and I will be on the road. So I'll be leaving on next Thursday, arriving early on the 1st, and you'll be leaving on Friday, arrive early on the 2nd. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So we got to figure out, what to do next week for CEM. That's one thing. And then the other thing is looking ahead into IAA Munich Mobility. I think it's going to become the IAA China EV/AV Mobility 2023. Because look at who's going there. So we know NIO is not exhibiting, but
they're going to have a presence.
Li Bin will be on the same panel as Ola, of well-known automaker that's rumored to be working with NIO. XPeng will be there. They'll do some. I think Brian will be there. They'll do some test drives. Leap Motor will be there. BYD will be there. Hesai will be there. Deepra will be there. And there's some other Chinese companies.
I'm just going to call it. I'm going to call it IAA Munich, and no one's called it IA. No one's called it yet, so I'm going to take credit for this, Lei. I'm going to call it the Beijing Auto Show West. That's what I'm going to call it.
the Beijing Auto Show European edition.
Yeah, just Beijing Auto Show West, because
German edition. Yeah, West. Yeah.
I'd like to see the foot traffic at these booths, in specifically BYD, specifically Polestar and things like that, because I expect a lot of foot traffic coming into those booths for sure. And there's one media day, there's the 4th. And so you and I, that's when we normally have our running shoes on, because we're just freaking running back and forth. But then
and the way this IAA Mobility is set up is that they have the IAA Summit, which is the showgrounds in the Messe, right? The exhibition ground. And they also have the open space inside the city, which will have some booths of, let's say, one company in particular, Avatar.
Yes.
Is global debuting their 12, because Avatar has their design based in Munich. Likewise, NIO has their design based in Munich.
What's important to note, Lei, is that you just rattled off 3, 4, 5 Chinese brands that will have a prominent spot in IAA Munich. Crickets on the Detroit Auto Show side. So that should tell you where their emphasis and where their attention is from a China EV Inc. standpoint.
Yeah,
okay?
It's pretty obvious.
If anybody was wondering, because I don't know, and I've looked as of 2 days ago, I didn't see any Chinese presence at the Detroit Auto Show. So not significant. From an OEM standpoint, because
right.
Our friends at Hesai, the LiDAR company, Septon, Septon's American. Let me say that. But RoboSense
companies,
they're all going to be there.
Yeah.
But no significant OEM presence. Now, around the corner is going to be the LA Auto Show and CES. Will we see any of them there?
Perhaps.
Maybe they don't feel Detroit is going to be very friendly for them. So, but, that's never deterred Stella for sure. So,
well, Detroit used to be the Beijing Auto Show West in the right around the financial crisis time, when BYD and all these companies would exhibit. Right?
But their vehicles at that time were complete trash. Trash
compared to now. I mean, my goodness.
And so there's a few people that are coming in from the US, Lei, that if I get an opportunity to kind of give them a tour of some of the Chinese EV booths, they've never experienced, touched, felt, seen a Chinese electric vehicle yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. For a lot of these people, going from the West to Europe is much simpler than going from the West to China. So this is a huge opportunity, right? So
until 2024, when Americans will also need a freaking visa. I don't know what you Europeans listening. What's up with that, man? I thought we were friends, man. What's going on with that visa stuff? So,
and then right, so XPeng recently launched the P7. Was it? Yes, P7 in Europe, right?
yes,
And then Zeekr shipped the
001.
001s to Europe, right? So they're coming. They've been coming, and we will be posting our conversation with Philip from Carwall, Germany, right before the IAA, and he had tremendous insights into the dynamics of buying a car and the perception of China EV Inc. in Germany.
And he points out a few missteps that some of China EV Inc. have done in Europe.
And we'll be looking forward to joining their happy hour, I guess.
Yes, they're having an event on the 7th, the evening of the 7th.
Yeah, so you and I will kind of,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. You probably attend some events that I won't be able to attend, and
Yeah, the calendar's getting full too because I wrote in my newsletter.
We'll be roughly a week.
Yeah,
a week in Munich.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward. I've never been to Munich, so
and then come back. So I come back on the 9th. I believe you come back on the 8th. Rest a few days, and then it'll be Detroit.
Oh man! So for any of our listeners, if you plan to be in Munich or Detroit for the auto shows, please get in touch. Lei and I last year had a happy hour. We're going to be hosting again, likely at the same place in Detroit. Man, if you and I could coordinate schedules, I would love to host a small little happy hour in Munich. But
yeah,
you're going to be too busy, man. You're too important. You're too important.
Yeah, I still need to pin down some of the details of my whereabouts. So
maybe we can do it Saturday night in like Munich city center or something.
When you're saying Saturday, you're saying the
second.
Second?
Because the second is Saturday, third is Sunday.
You arrive on the morning of the second, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
we'll see. I mean, hopefully within next few days.
Rookie mistake. I wrote in my newsletter 2 weeks ago, "Hey man, let's have a beer. Let's go have a pint." And one of the readers like, "Nah, man, they don't drink pints there." It's
what's the German term?
Ein Maß,
a pill,
ein Pils,
ein Pils,
ein Maß. So
yeah.
So rookie mistake. My apologies. Anyway.
Yeah. So I think it's your first time to Munich, right? It's not my first time to Munich, but it is my first time spending significant amount of time at an auto show in Munich. So looking forward to it.
Oh,
really looking forward.
The number one thing that I asked for recommendations.
BMW Welt.
Yes,
got to be a visit. So.
Oh man, I'm gonna be in like heaven. Like BMW museum is just gonna be amazing, I think. Anyways,
yeah, I've been to the Merc museum. I've been to the Porsche museum. So that'll be a bucket list.
Oh man, so I've been to Porsche, never been to Merc. That is definitely one I need to go to.
Yeah,
I was down in Italy, took the boys to Lamborghini, took the boys to Ferrari, took them to Ducati, and
the Motor Valley.
I said it was for me, but they weren't that interested. I mean, I said it was for the boys. I told my wife, "Hey, I'm taking them to the museum so they can see this stuff." And it was more for me, anyways. But hey, I don't really have anything else, Lei.
I don't either, man. So just rest a few days and then get ready for Munich.
Yeah, man, let's rumble. But
I just came back from Germany, so
jeez, that's right. So everyone, thanks for joining us. We will catch you all next week. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening.
Somewhere next week, somewhere in the world. Probably not in the US, but we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lee, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, We'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.